Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City of Atlanta, Council District 5 Candidate Forum. This event is brought to you by the League of Women Voters, Atlanta Fulton County, the ACLU of Georgia, the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys Foundation Incorporated, as well as the Pi Alpha Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator for this afternoon event, who is Nicola Hines. Nicola has joined the League of Women Voters with the simple belief that our country can be a better place if we are all actively involved in the political process when empowered with nonpartisan information when we vote. Nicola has been a member of the League since 2017 and was elected as the president of the League of Women Voters Atlanta Fulton County in May of 2020. Nicola has also served as the chair for the City of Atlanta's governing board of the Office of Inspector General, formerly known as the Ethics Board of Atlanta. And she also represents the League of Women Voters of Atlanta Fulton County on the board. Nicola is the founder and CEO of Hines Hospitality, LLC, a hospitality consulting firm that specializes in project and operations management, concept development, and food and beverage lifestyle experiences. She has an extensive background in hospitality industry with over 18 years worth of experience. She has worked for major food and beverage companies such as Carlson Restaurants, that would be like TGIF Corporation's locations, Levi Restaurants, like sports and entertainment, and Delaware North, travel and hospitality. Nicola holds a dual Bachelor of Arts degree with a concentration in social science and emphasis in economics and sociology from the University of Southern California. She also obtains a professional diploma in restaurant management from the Art Institute of New York, and she is also a certified hospitality development department trainer from the American Hotel and Lodging Educational Institute. She is also the immediate past president of the University of Southern California Alumni Club of Atlanta and an active member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, serving on multiple committees. So before I kick it to you, Nicola, I also want to point out that she is also a loser who bet on the Giants against the Atlanta Falcons. So with that, Nicola, please take it away.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it, even though that should not have been part of this. Hello, everyone. I'm Nicola Hines. I am the president of League of Women Voters, and I appreciate everyone joining us this afternoon, on this sunny afternoon. I'm just bringing on all of our candidates today. Just give me a moment. Missing somebody. Oh, Samuel. There we go. All righty. So hello, candidates. Just to reiterate the rules, everyone will have 1 minute to do their intro, along with there'll be 1 minute to answer each question that I will ask everyone, and then 1 minute to answer for any audience questions or any questions coming from the community. And then at the end, you'll have 1 minute to do your closing statement. I will start everything off alphabetically. So the opening statements will go in alphabetically based off your last name. I will be calling you guys ladies and gentlemen by your first names, but it'll go alphabetically by your last name and for your opening statement, and then your last statement will go in reverse order. So let's begin. I'll start off with Mr. Samuel. You have 1 minute to introduce yourself.
Yes. Thank you, Nicola. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters and your partners by extension for this opportunity. Again, I'm Samuel Baycoat, one of the candidates in the City Council District 5 race, and I am a believer, a big believer, and I believe that in District 5, we have a better beloved community. I live in the 5th North Ormwood Park section in Glenwood Park homeowners area, where I serve as vice president with my wife and 2 children. And I've been here for the last 6 years. And I've been behind the scenes for the last several years, mostly helping make this city a better place for all of us. And I've got a lot of, with that experience, a lot of passion, a lot of what I call servant leadership, organizational building that I want to use to help ensure that we leverage all of the resources, to maximize all the resources of District 5, such that all the residents in District 5 experience social mobility, equity, and thrive. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Ms. Liliana.
Yeah, thank you guys. And thank you so much for having us on this forum. So my name is Liliana Bakhtiari, again, running for Council District 5. I have lived in the district 15 going on 16 years. My entire background is in mutual aid and crisis relief work. I've been organizing in Atlanta in 26 countries around the globe, but mostly here in our home city for majority of my life. When people ask the question, when did you get political? I was born this way. I was born into a very politically active family. I am queer, I am Muslim, I am brown, all of these things. Some of us are just born that way, because sometimes for some of us, breathing is like a form of protest. But again, my whole background, I was raised in public service. I'm running because I want to shape proactive legislation, because I believe that Atlanta, and especially District 5, can really lead the way for what an equitable, inclusive city can look like. I've been organizing in the city since I was a kid, and I'm excited to take that experience and turn it into proactive, progressive legislation, because I do believe that the city has real potential and that we can actually get things done.
Thank you, Ms. Liliana. Ms. Katie?
Hi, my name is Katie Kissel. I am the only active neighborhood leader here on the panel. I'm president of Kirkwood Neighbors Organization. I am also a legal observer with the ACLU and a member of the League of Women Voters. So I appreciate very much this forum, and thank you guys so much for having us. I am running for Atlanta City Council District 5 as a mother, as a active community member, as a person who uses a bike as their primary mode of transportation, and as someone who has to work in order to provide money and come into their household and be able to afford to live in an increasingly unaffordable city. I am here to address those issues of unaffordable housing, of lack of income mobility, of the lack of investment of infrastructure, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. On to Ms. Mandy.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a super special call for me because I served on the League's board at the state level from 2005 to 2008. So this group does such important work. And I've spent my entire career working in public policy. So I was fortunate to be on the team that launched the Beltline, and then served in Shirley Franklin's administration as the first sustainability director. In the last 10 years, I've been doing more of that work. I've been doing public policy work around the entire Southeast, focused on climate change, environmental justice, and affordable housing in our communities. So it is with that passion that I come to this conversation, and I'm excited to be engaged with my other candidates today to answer y'all's questions and have a robust discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Mr. Douglas.
Hi, my name is Doug Williams. I'm also a candidate for the 5th District in Atlanta City Council. I've been a husband, father, small business person, and usual suspect in good trouble in Atlanta and DeKalb for most of the past 20 years. I'm running for City Council because I want to make sure that Atlanta works for everyone, and I know that working together, we can make it happen. The City Council rep has the greatest opportunity to do the most good for the most people by acting as advocate, representative, coordinator, and facilitator to bring together public and private groups and resources to affect positive change. I put over 10,000 hours of my life in our community as a neighborhood president, NPU officer, renovating city parks, founding and running the farmers market and urban farm, and reducing crime while building community. I've partnered with city, state, federal, and private resources to bring our community over $1 million in improvements. And I'm not new to this. I've been doing this, and I'm asking you to hire me to work for you because I know talk is easy, but action gets things done. I'll work for an Atlanta that works for everyone, but especially the people in District 5.
Well, thank you so much, candidates, for your intro. So now let's go ahead and get a little into some of these questions and dig a little bit deeper of where you stand in terms of city politics and city leadership. So you've shared your platform as candidates running for office. What have you already done for your district and in working with the Atlanta leadership in the past years to improve or address your proposed agenda? And we're going to start that off with Mr. Samuel.
I'm presently serving as vice president of the Greenwood Park Homeowners Association, and we have a Beltline trail in front of our neighborhood, and I work rather closely with the Beltline, and I'm also on the Path Foundation to ensure that that trail has all of the added enhancements as it relates to safety for cyclists, pedestrians, and even drivers. I've also been responsible in the last few years for bringing over 1,000 new jobs to District 5, as well as over 100 affordable housing units that were a part of Atlanta's inclusionary zoning and land use restriction agreements. So I've done quite a bit in the past to make sure that District 5 thrives in ways some fall.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Ms. Liliana, same question to you.
Yes. So like I said, my entire background is in mutual aid work over the last year, correct? Is that right, Nicola?
Yeah, past few years.
Past few years. So during the pandemic, during the last few years, I've done a lot around housing affordability, around criminal justice reform, fighting for decriminalizations of things like marijuana, and trying to do things like open wellness centers and low barrier shelters in our city. Specifically over the last few years, started regular drives to a lot of our senior towers that are actually run by corporations that aren't actually getting any funding for the seniors there. So providing regular drives for them, doing a lot around the battling around voter suppression and voter education, and going as far to actually launch a statewide initiative during the Abrams campaign to get people educated and out to vote. In the district, done a lot of work around doing blood drives, food drives. It was part of the team to establish the first low barrier shelter in the city at the Ramada to do rapid rehousing for our homeless population, and also doing regular outreach to our community to educate them on different policy reform and how to become active citizen lobbyists. So just a few things.
Thank you so much. Ms. Katie, question to you.
Yeah, so as president of Kirkwood Neighbors Organization, I oversee a committee which we call Kirkwood Cares, which makes necessary repairs to elderly low-income residents' homes so they can age gracefully in place. I also oversaw the creation of the Kirkwood Adopt a Senior program, the revitalization of our Kirkwood newsletters, which is delivered to every single home in Kirkwood so we can get a better community outreach. I also am a board member and mentor with HAY, Helping Empower Youth. We work across the city with our youth water entrepreneurs, providing them resources, mentorship, and advocating on their behalf, because unfortunately, the city's response to having young men selling water on the street corners was immediately to consider, arresting them or other punitive measures. So, those are just a few of the things that I have done.
Thank you so much. The question goes to you, Mandy.
Terrific. So the work Katie talks about that Kirkwood Cares does is critical. And the city is also giving back millions and millions of dollars every year that can be used to upgrade the homes of our elderly population. It is because of historic racist policy that people have not been able to access resources to upgrade their homes. And now they live in homes that are decaying around them. And it is an absolute travesty that we're giving that money back. For the last 10 years, the nonprofit I ran has been working to address that and change that policy so that systematically in District 5, but also across the city, that we can see that those dollars come in so that the homes are not just made to have a roof fix, but that the people live in a home that is healthy, has high quality indoor air quality, so that they can actually age in place. It is one thing to pay for our property taxes. It's another thing to be able to actually live in a house in which you can breathe the air. That's what I've been working on, and that is why I'm running for this seat.
Thank you so much. And a question to you, Mr. Doug.
Okay, I'm going to go quick because there's a lot to cover. Everything I'm running on is stuff that I've actually done within the community. I led parks improvements for about a decade, where we did the first Park Pride Vision Plan, executed most of it, including securing funds to renovate a historic building and for our community center, building a new playground. I started a public safety working group for Atlanta and DeKalb neighbors. Our Atlanta neighborhoods were coordinating with our unincorporated DeKalb neighbors and city of Oakhurst to improve relationships between the community and the police and reduce crime. I literally just came from a meeting where we were talking with the mayor of Oakhurst and DeKalb County Commissioner Johnson. I've engaged the community in development plans for what would be improvements to Second Hosea and Glenwood and Fayetteville. With that also involved improving our housing and our business development. I've also worked on roadway improvements with the city, county, state, federal resources for Glenwood Memorial, and started a farmers market and urban farm to displace crime, build community, and feed low-income families.
Thank you so much. So we're gonna move on, and we're gonna actually talk about infrastructure. And I'm gonna start this question off with Liliana. So poor infrastructure continues to be a major problem throughout our city. Although some council districts are faring better than others, the mayor has just proposed a $700 million funding package to address infrastructure needs over a 5-year period. What do you want to see funded in District 5?
Better sidewalks and much better roads. I mean, we have DeKalb Avenue, which literally has been promised to us time and time again. I want to see that money stop going to vanity projects like an illegal bridge to nowhere that was built by the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I want to see that go towards things like weatherization of homes for more extreme weather patterns, to go towards things such as opening up of rec centers that we've had closed down in our communities that have become hot spots for drug and sex trafficking. Really want to see it going towards building our city's first low barrier shelters. Because of that, we have absolutely none. We need to see rapid repairs to things like bike lanes, a complete street design. Because of that, we have none, and actually doing more impermeable surfaces so we don't have such extreme flooding issues. And I would love to see that go to things like mandatory green and reflective roofing, because again, we're in the middle of a climate crisis and there's a lot of work that we need to do, but we have severe flooding issues in the city, and we also have crumbling infrastructure, and we don't have safe walkable or bikeable roads. So there's a lot that we need to put that money towards, but that's where I would start.
Thank you so much. That question next goes to Katie.
Sorry, guys, I was having a little bit of technical issues. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. As a candidate who uses a bike as their primary mode of transportation, no one understands or appreciates potholes more than I do. I have literally been riding down Memorial Drive and had my 2 children on the back of my bike, and if I had been 1 second later, I would have flipped us all over because there was a grate that was literally missing out of the side of Memorial Drive. So I would definitely say that we need to get back to the basics of being able to provide our basic services. And specifically when it comes to streets and sidewalks, I am in full support of Amir Faroukhi's proposal to actually develop a plan for how the city of Atlanta can take fiscal responsibility for its sidewalks. We cannot allow our individual homeowners to have to fiscally be responsible for the sidewalk in front of their home. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for roads, and it doesn't make sense for sidewalks, and it's an inequitable way of handling our sidewalk infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, Mandy.
So when I was the sustainability director for the city under Shirley Franklin, that was during the first round of big stimulus under Obama. And I was able to secure and attract over $100 million to do infrastructure improvements throughout the city. And what that taught me was for the city to be able to scale up for the amount of cash that's going to flow from the feds, we have got to have really good leadership on the inside. Right now, the city's given back a lot of money across the board, whether it be for trails for in East Atlanta or the like. And I have real concerns because I think the priorities are consistent, but I am worried that the executive branch is not going to be able to effectively get those dollars out. And that's where we as council have a duty to provide the oversight to ensure that the dollars actually get allocated and spent and not given back.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. The next goes to Mr. Doug.
Yes, I think that if we're going to develop our infrastructure plans, we need to do this in cooperation with our citizens, our neighborhoods, and our NPUs. And I would like to do this with what I call a community performance review. And within that, we would identify sidewalk, bikeway, roadway improvements, as well as improvements to our parks and recreation centers. which have seen a massive amount of cutbacks over the past 2 administrations, and they're a big part of our infrastructure that's been neglected. We can identify our priorities with our ongoing annual community performance review, where we engage citizens online with a survey, as well as making it available at community centers, library, and our senior centers. And this will annually provide metrics of performance to guide leadership. And we can also use that to provide quarterly updates to the community as far as how we are responding to their concerns. As far as how we're going to pay for infrastructure, which I haven't heard anybody talk about, we need a gasoline tax. We need to use automobiles to pay for the improvements to the city to get us away from them.
Okay, thank you so much. And Mr. Samuel.
Yes, that's a good question. And as a candidate, my representative sample, and I'm going to call it representative, is that most people in District 5 complain now about potholes, complain now about streets, complain about sidewalks. I hear it every day I'm out there talking to people. So I would address those dollars, I would direct them to, again, those areas. I think it will go a long way in building what I want to call trust. If you can get, things people can see, like sidewalks, potholes, you can get those fixed, then the people, those that we serve, will start to have trust again in city government. Right now, it's not there. Trash isn't picked up. Just so much is going on. We got to find the small things, like, again, for an infrastructure project, I would just, again, start with streets and sidewalks, potholes in particular. I was hit by, on Atlanta Street, hit by a truck on my bicycle more than 20 years ago. Street design is awful. They aren't safe. So again, that's where I would focus, something people can see, and also would help, I believe, in instilling more trust in services. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So we're going to stay on infrastructure for a little bit more. Would you support the city's Department of Public Works creating a structure for the north, east, south, and west with operating teams to focus on their respective areas, to keep and maintain with the appropriate crews, equipment to ensure accountability, that all of Atlanta areas are maintained? And please explain why or why not.
Nicole, would you
And
mind
that's-
repeating one more time? It just cut out for like a second. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Would you support the city's Department of Public Works creating a structure for the north, east, south, and west with operating teams to focus on their respective areas, to keep and maintain the appropriate crews and equipment to ensure accountability, that all of Atlanta areas are maintained? And I would like you to answer why or why not once you give your answer. And that one, we're going to start off with Katie.
Yeah, just in a quick question, has this been already specifically proposed or is that just a basic question?
Just a basic question.
Okay, sorry. I just want to make sure I was getting to the heart of the answer.
Yeah, no, just a basic question.
I think that could be a potential way to solve it. My only concern would be around the equitable spending and how that would be split up in terms of, where we are spending our dollars now and where they're most needed. So as long as we could ensure that there was an equitable distribution of department dollars, to make sure that every part of Atlanta is getting the same quality of service. And sometimes when we're talking about equitable, it's not necessarily equal, right? So sometimes the same quality of service takes more money in certain parts of the city. So that would be my main concern with this system. As long as we were able to do that, I would be in favor.
Okay, thank you so much. Mandy?
Yes, I think definitely. We've got to take a different approach than we're currently taking because we are at a state of system failure. And there's quite a variation in infrastructure need based on the city, but the city is already in their planning efforts put together plans that we just need to implement. And I think by breaking up the resource flow, then you could start chipping away at what is needed. Right now, we have $1 billion backlog in sidewalks, for instance. The city already has an equity overlay that they just need to apply so that we can start getting that money out the door. And so I think there's been substantial planning, but if we could allocate the resources the way you're talking about, then you could actually begin to, block by block, address the problems.
Thank you so much. Doug? Question to you.
Yes, I absolutely support breaking things down into a regional basis to have appropriate crews. We need public transparency of how this budget is going to be established and where the resources are going to be allocated. And I would want to see a public process of setting these priorities, goals, and objectives for each different region. I expect that we're going to find that different regions have greater needs than others. Probably if we're looking at infrastructure, sidewalks, roadways, the Southwest side is going to need a lot more going on than Buckhead. Nothing against Buckhead, but they've been a little bit better cared for than the Southwest side. I think that these goals and objectives need to be established with the NPUs, neighborhood organizations, and neighbors through a process such as I've described with the community performance review, where we come to agreement on what needs to be done, but establish a pattern of responsiveness and respect for community concerns.
Thank you so much, Doug. To you, Samuel.
Yeah, sure. Someone once said up north that all politics is local. And I firmly believe in localization of issues. And all that means really is getting it down to where it's the basic, the community, the neighborhood, the block, getting it down as far as you can to that level. So to the extent we're talking about breaking up the city into maybe 4 zones and assigning crews to, each zone, that will give us a chance to, I think, hold those individuals on those crews more accountable. When it's spread out, it's a more difficult task, but we're going to see some redundancy in case one crew is not available, whatever. And I'm willing to be a part of that. I'll go as a council person and get on one of those crews to make sure that it's being done the right way. I think that's the kind of leadership we need in District 5, where we're willing to get down into the mud, get down into the work, and actually show ourselves doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Liliana, same question to you.
Yeah, I absolutely support it. But I think at the end of the day, everyone's brought up good points about money, about needing performance reviews, all of these things. But at the end of the day, we are severely understaffed and our employees aren't being taken care of. I was lucky to be endorsed by PACE, the Union for City Employees, and they are the ones that help with public works. And the fact of the matter is right now, like a lot of these forums, they're great, but we're talking about the people that need help. We're not talking to them. And so these folks are experts on their conditions. A lot of them are having to drive an hour to 2 hours out to even get to the city to take care of things. So we have to defer to the people that are actually doing the work and make sure that they are well staffed, that they are well paid, that whistleblowers aren't getting punished, that we have workforce housing so that we can enable the people that can do that work to ensure, because we can allocate all the money in the world, but if that money isn't making it down to the people doing the work, then we're going to end up in the same problems that we've been in over and over again, which is misuse of funds, misappropriation, lack of transparency, all of that. So we have to make sure that we're actually giving those employees a seat at the table, the people that represent them, and ensure that we're actually enabling, setting them up for success. Because right now, if you ask DPW, they'll tell you they don't have enough funding to even maintain the streets. They barely have the funding to keep the roads clear. And so things are ending up backed up all the time. It's leading to our flood issues. It's leading to everything. So first and foremost, staffing and making sure that the people that are doing the work are actually represented. So
thank you so much, Lynn. Okay. One last question on infrastructure. And I believe somebody mentioned about litter. So litter on our city streets, Atlanta Expressway, remains a huge concern, especially if you're going down like 75, 85, the connector under the bridges. Keeping Atlanta Beautiful has worked hard to make our city litter free. What plan would you put in place to ensure that the city maintains its beautification across the board? And how do you propose to work with the state of Georgia?
That's me.
Yes, Mandy, sorry.
Okay. No, you're fine. It all goes back to partnership. And yeah, Atlanta has not always had the best partnership with state agencies. And I have, the last 10 years, the nonprofit I ran, we were served 11 states in the Southeast. So I had to work with folks from lots of different political backgrounds to figure out ways to find common ground and make win-wins. And I think this is a perfect example of where to do that, because no matter if you are at the state level or you're here at the city, we all want to see a clean and beautiful city. And we have a great partner in Keep Atlanta Beautiful. There are other nonprofits that are also working with people that are unsheltered that relate to the drivers when you specifically talk about under the bridges. And so we must look at this problem holistically. We can't look at it just as a problem that, we need teams going out to clear up the people under the bridges. No, we've got to effectively support people that are unsheltered to get them in shelters, as well as working with Department of Transportation to clean up the trash.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Doug.
sorry, I'm trying to keep myself off mute. We definitely need sufficient staff to do the job. We don't have enough resources across the board in almost every city agency. And this is one of the areas where we're suffering. You see this with trash pickup, you especially see it with yard waste, and we have got to have more resources to do the job. Beyond that, we also need public transparency, again, and how those resources are allocated. And we do need to seek state support. We need to work on that relationship. But let's be honest, a lot of the people in the state run for office by running against Atlanta. And we need to be prepared to find solutions to do this on our own if the state is unwilling to come through with sufficient resources to support us. All too often we hear excuses of why we can't get things done, and we need to figure out solutions for how we can get things done, even in a difficult environment.
Thank you so much. Next, Samuel.
Thank you. I think I just figured out a technical issue on my end. Is that better? I heard some feedback that it's still okay. All right.
There's no feedback, but you're kind of muffled.
That's what
Just
someone.
just speak louder, Sam.
Okay. Okay. This is for me. It's a kind of interesting question because many people who know me, especially in my neighborhood, call me the trash guy, the trash man. In fact, I became someone known a few years ago who would go out, and I still do this. I go out almost every day. And I literally pick up trash along this, especially Kennedy Street, which is in front of our neighborhood. So having a clean block, city, it's important to me. I know what it represents in terms of just how you feel about your community. And that's why I do that. Now, I think as it relates to, it's a bigger campaign than just one person, than just me. So I've had many people, when they see me out there, volunteer to work with me. So that's how it starts. It starts small. We got to partner with other nonprofits to get this thing going. And then I think it builds from there. As it relates to the state, we just got to find that lever. I don't have the answer right now, but there's got to be a lever somehow to get the state to come to the party too, because it's so important to all of us. They got to recognize that, dirty streets anywhere in this state is reflective of their leadership too.
Thank you so much. Liliana, same question to you.
Yeah, I think when we talk about state relationships, that one quote by LaGuardia always comes to mind. There's no Republican or Democratic way to pick up trash. So like being able to find that common road, there isn't one. So I have been endorsed, again, I bring this up, it's all about intergovernmental relationships, by majority of the Atlanta delegation and a lot of people at the state house and state senate, because I've done so much work up there, especially on behalf of the city. This is not going to be the most difficult thing to carry out with the state, because we already have people that are willing to, on both sides of the aisle, help carry legislation like this. So I think that being able to work with the state to make that happen is great. But also, Atlanta has a history of the appearance of beautiful without actually paying mind to the people that are actually mentioned under bridges. Hostile architecture is still a very big part of what Atlanta does. And so people being cleared out from under these bridges, trash being left behind, the lack of housing for folks, the lack of cleanup, again, staffing issues, money, yes. But at the same time, if expecting someone who's homeless to recycle or throw away trash when they haven't even been treated like a human being for majority of their life, how can we expect that to happen? So it's going to take a holistic approach. It's going to take intergovernmental collaboration. It's going to take staffing. It's going to take all of that, but it's also going to take workforce housing, and it's also going to take an expanded waste program. And also the recycling program in our city is a farce. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much. And Katie.
I am so sorry. When you were stating this question, I had like a train of children and a dog running through. So could you please repeat the question?
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
Yes, no problem. So litter on city streets and Atlanta expressways remains a concern. Keep Atlanta Beautiful has worked hard to make our city litter free. What plan would you put in place to ensure that the city maintains its beautification across the board? And how do you propose to work with the state of Georgia? Especially because of the expressways are Georgia ran, state ran rather.
Yes, absolutely. So a couple things with that is I'm a big proponent of not reinventing the wheel. And I think that Atlanta is a city with a wealth of resources. Keep Atlanta Beautiful being one of them, but there are many other organizations out there in the city that are doing this work. And, specifically, from a neighborhood perspective, that is something that we do on a regular basis, coming and getting people to come and clean up in their neighborhood. And it does incentivize a sense of pride. And so I would say that we need to use the systems and the organizations that we already have. I would also argue against, instead of treating the symptoms of something, actually treating the root cause. So the root cause of homelessness under the bridges and under the freeways is homelessness. We have to work on addressing homelessness, not addressing the trash they leave behind.
Thank you so much. So we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to get out of the questions of infrastructure. Let's talk about public safety. We know that's a hot topic in the city. We've heard repeatedly that the Atlanta Police Department is understaffed and has a shortage of officers. What's not often talked about is that the Atlanta Fire and Rescue Department is also understaffed. What can you do as a city council member to bring the fire department up to full capacity? And that starts off with Doug.
Well, one of the problems that they're experiencing, we're familiar with everyone discussing the Atlanta Police Training Center. One of the things that wasn't really addressed was that the fire department also has a massive shortage of resources. One of the first things we have to do is have adequate equipment for them to do their job. We are currently very short on equipment when it comes to ladder trucks, when it comes to fire trucks. We are using cheap equipment that breaks easily and is not built for what it's being used for. A lot of these fire trucks actually, for them to work properly, they've got to be running for about 20 minutes for the engine to be properly cooled and lubricated. And instead what's happening is they make a 5-minute run and it causes the engine to break down and get to have repair problems earlier than most equipment is going to be dealt with. So we need more resources. We need to pay for better equipment. That'll help us retain our fire department.
Thank you so much. Question goes to you, Samuel.
Right. I think now the idea of serving our city, even in particular, particularly like as a firefighter, police officer, it's not cool, if you will. So young people in the city don't think much about becoming a firefighter, at least enough about becoming a firefighter or police officer. We got to put some glam back into those jobs. Got to explain the importance of it. We got to get better equipment. Got to make them cool. Those jobs need to be very significant to all of our livelihoods. And I just don't think in particular, the young people connect with that. We've got, Katie will probably talk about the water boards. I mean, it's great to get with groups like that and say, hey, have you thought about this as a next step? Something like this, and they get them the cadet program. You can find ways to introduce things like firefighting and the central purposes that it relates to the city, the younger people who are thinking about careers, getting them thinking about, again, entering those kinds of forces, police force, fire force, and I think they'll begin to help with the issue of low staff numbers.
Okay. Thank you so much. Liliana, question to you.
Yeah, so I've actually been working with the firefighters for years. I was lucky enough to earn their endorsement this cycle as well because of the work that we've done together. And so one of the big things for them is right now they don't have an effective pay study, so they don't know how much they should be getting paid. They're not getting paid allocated amounts of money, like the money that they actually deserve. We don't have a step increase or COLA program in the city, and that's a massive problem. It also goes back to workforce housing. The majority of the people that work for us first responders, especially in our fire department, can barely afford to live here. And majority of the firefighters these past few years, the current head of one of the firefighters actually had trouble this last year. He was actually going around and testing the firehouses himself because there was black mold in each of them and they could not get the city to respond. So it's not even just about pay, it's about the conditions that they are working in. If you and I were, say, to donate washers and dryers right now to the fire department to help them wash their uniform to get rid of cancer-causing carcinogens, we would actually have to go through hell and back before that actually saw its way into a firehouse. It would sit in a warehouse untouched for months, if not a year, before it made its way there. So it's also about making sure they have the correct representation to represent themselves, talking to them, deferring to the experts, and then meeting their needs, because they have put out year after year plans on what they need. It's just about listening to them.
Thank you so much. Katie?
I would say that the main issue when we're talking about our jobs, our service jobs, specifically our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers, all of these jobs, the people who pick up trash, our city workers, they can't afford to live here. That's the number one thing. And we have to be able to, I think that would be the biggest incentive. I think that would really affect the recidivism. That's a hard word. Listen, I'm going to stop trying to say it. The turnover rates within our departments. And you know, if we could provide them with guaranteed affordable housing. And the AHA and Atlanta Public Schools are two of the largest property owners in the city of Atlanta. What if we could build housing that would be specific to our public servants? I think this is the answer for us going forward. I think this will really address so many issues across so many public service platforms. And that's what I would like to address as your next city councilwoman.
Thank you. And next to Mandy.
You brought up the federal infrastructure bill earlier, and this is a direct tie because we need to be ensuring that we're allocating money that will come from that to support the backlog of trucks that we need for the fire department, but also in public works, also for our police officers. There's not just a backlog of infrastructure needs for paving the streets and filling the potholes, but all the vehicles that we have also. And so I think that there is an imminently available source of funding for that. I also think we've got some basic executive management problems that we got to face across the departments. And that's going to be critical that the next mayor puts in place chiefs of the police and the fire department who are going to ensure that the folks know that they've got the leadership has their back and will support them to create a really high quality work environment to attract and retain talent.
Thank you so much with that, Mandy. So we're back to the top of the roster. This question is going to start off with Mr. Samuel. Crime in Atlanta has hit national news. In 2020, Atlanta, the city saw 29 murders, 172 shootings, 626 aggravated assaults, 33 rapes, and 255 robberies. What solution do you have to reduce crime and improve public safety?
And the answer is very comprehensive. And I like to, we've talked about this. What's the mother? What's the mother of crime? It's income inequality and poverty. That's the mother. We got to arrest those things first. We got to arrest income inequality. We got to arrest poverty because that's what leads to people getting into crime. Now, I am very concerned about, in particular, the gun violence. And I think a lot of that, I'm going to call it the gang mentality, a lot of that's out there like that. And I think we need to sort of take, with that at least, those who are out there committing crimes now, a carrot kind of stick approach. We got to sit down with them. And it may sound different, but I believe we got to sit down with them. We know they are. And say, look, we're going to provide, so if you put the guns down, you're going to get services, wraparound services, if it's mental health, if it's education, if it's access to a job, we will work with you. But you got to put the guns down. If you don't, we got the stick over you too. But I believe, again, we got to arrest not them, but arrest poverty and arrest income inequality.
Okay, thank you. Liliana, question to you.
Yeah, so we need to meet staffing minimums across the board. This includes 911 operators as well. We need to ensure that we're taking responsibility off of the police because right now they're burdened with too much and they can't possibly focus on violent crime. So we need to diversify our approach by doing things like funding PAD and bringing them under a city contract, having a 24/7 mental health response team. And for those facing poverty, we need to ensure that we are tracking that on a client by client basis so we know what is successful, so we are able to track the causes of recidivism. And we need to also make sure that we are closing on ACDC to turn into a diversion center similar to that in Houston, Texas, and Harris County there, because we know that what we have seen, we have the data to back up that if you take people that are in jailed because of poverty or mental health or nonviolent offenses like failure to appear or being held on cash bail and divert them into a place with wraparound services, then they will be set up for success. We need to stop punishing people for being poor and experiencing trauma. And the fastest way to do that also is through job security and housing security, and also investing in work trades and starting that, in my opinion, at a middle school level. So we're channeling kids out of the school to prison pipeline.
Thank you so much. Katie, question to you.
Yeah, I do believe that we first have to start with poverty and income inequality and look at the opportunities that we're offering to our youth. The reason, when you come back to the reason that I decided to run for this office, it was because I saw very clearly the two Atlantans that exist. The Atlanta that is for my children and the Atlanta for the children that I mentor who are at risk. who all of which have a gun. So in order for us to address crime in Atlanta, we have to address the income inequality and the inequality of resources, as well as the access to guns. No one talks about the fact that Atlanta is basically the United States headquarters for gun trade. And it is so easy. It is easier for kids here to get a gun than it is for them to get a high school education. It is easier for them to get a gun than it is for them to get a healthy meal. It is easier for them to get a gun than it is for them to get a safe place to sleep at night. And so when we are dealing with that type of access to firearms and lack of access to resources, that is ultimately what we're going to get, no matter how many police officers we have on the street.
Thank you so much, Katie. Next, Mandy.
I want to just second, third, and fourth everything that Katie, Liliana, and Sam have already said. This is such a gnarly problem that has so many layers to it. And we've got to hold the tension of dealing with the root causes like Sam named, but then also the practical, what do we need to do to rebuild our officers, our police force, the morale in that. And I will work very closely with the next police chief, as well as the range of really top-notch nonprofits we have out there, so that we can support the police to do what they're good at, but then also work with other organizations that can peel back what is not right to be on their plate, to be able to get at the entrenched poverty, the mental health issues, substance abuse, so that we can more holistically deal with the short, near, and long-term phases of this problem.
Thank you. Staying on public safety. Since the killing of George Floyd, the slogan,
Hang on, I think you forgot Doug.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Doug. I'm so, I've been like trying to get you back on. I do apologize. Thank you, Liliana. So sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I'm moderating and doing technology at the same time. So
no, thank you. We're having technical issues over here. Katie was teasing me that we need to run on internet access across the city because over here on Hooper Street, we've got issues with AT&T. So I did not hear the question. Can you repeat it for me?
Yes, no problem. Crime in Atlanta has hit national news. In 2020, Atlanta, the city saw 29 murders, 172 shootings, 626 aggravated assaults, 33 rapes, and 255 robberies. What solutions do you have to reduce crime and improve public safety?
Okay, first of all, crime is up everywhere, but Atlanta legitimately is having serious issues that demand attention. And if we're going to get to the root cause of it, we do have to improve housing options for our people and opportunity for our people. We have created desperate circumstances that are creating desperate choices. Now, specifically to the police department, we need to fully staff our police department. We are currently understaffed by about 30%. We need to hire them back in, and we need to give them complete and clear expectations of what's going to be acceptable for the job and what's going to get them fired. Our last administration really failed at that. We need to focus, once we have full staff, on community policing so they know who they're working with, who the problem people are within their community, who should be better left alone. We have to humanize that relationship between the police and the community so that the officers are able to live in the community with housing assistance and are not only respected but appreciated by our community members. And we have to fund issues we have neglected and just handed it off to the police, issues of mental health, homelessness, and drug addiction that we have failed to address, and we just leave to them to clean up. We can't just make them the cleanups for our societal failures.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And I do apologize.
Oh, it was me. Thank you.
It's okay. So next, the question will go to you, Liliana, to start off with. Since the killing of George Floyd, the slogan, defund the police, has been heard. In your own words, what does that mean to you? And what would it look like for the city of Atlanta?
Let's just go ahead and start by saying that we, like those of us who are progressives, are historically terrible at naming things, and defund the police should never have been the title of that. Because to me, what it means is, what that means is, one, I don't agree with the title, but what it means to me is wanting to live in a world in which wouldn't it be amazing if crime, the need to combat crime was obsolete because we did things like provide housing security, youth empowerment programs, if we did things like make sure that we are invested in work trades programs, because there's no higher ROI on anything than skilled trades. To me, it looks like actually equipping because one of the biggest things during this movement was that people didn't know what to ask the city for. You hear people being like, we want to going towards healthcare, we want to going towards education, in which the city charter actually prohibits council from being able to directly affect those things, but not foundational issues that contribute to success in both of those fields. So being able to do things like allocate more of that funding, to me, it means auditing APD to find out where the funding is going, where that money is going. I think there should be key audits across the board of watershed and a number of other things, because there's been a lot of bloat in our city and we don't know how money is being spent. We have a transparency issue. But to me, it means taking a look at our city budget and allocating money towards communities where graduation rates are the lowest and where unemployment rates are the highest, and combating it at a foundational issue to tackle systemic inequality.
Thank you. Next. Sorry. Katie.
It's all right. You're playing double duty. We got you. No big deal. So, we talk about defund the police, and I mean, the reality is we live in a hashtag world, and, decreasing police budget in order to more properly allocate those resources towards health and human services, it's just not a hashtag. All right. So, I mean, defund the police is a very shortened version of that. And yes, we've been defunding lots of things for years. We don't say that we're defunding it, but we've defunded education. We've defunded our parks programs. We've defunded a lot of different things in this city, and no one seems to have a problem with it. Defunding the police, in fact, has become illegal at the state level. We cannot decrease our police budget by more than 5% because of a law that was passed at the Georgia legislature last year. So what I am considering when I hear defund the police is I'm saying, let's put our resources towards programs that actually prevent crime and not just respond to it.
Thank you so much for that answer. Mandy, the question goes to you.
I hear sadness. I hear exhaustion. I hear people feeling like they've beaten their head against the wall. And I've spent my life in service of environmental justice, and it gets real hard after a while to continue to show up when the system's not in your favor. And Liliana's right. It was bad branding. But we've got to honor the root of the spirit of it. And in short, we need to do things differently. We need just and effective policing. It goes, again, I think public policy is all about holding that tension to be able to recognize what to keep and what to evolve. And in this, we're at a truly crisis point that is continuing to play out.
Thank you for that answer. The question that goes to you, Doug.
So defund this police is pretty much a stupid name for what were some pretty good ideas, but it was also an outcome of the legacy of police abuse within this country that has gone unaddressed. And unfortunately, APD got caught up in what were national issues at the time. What defund should mean, and what I like about the ideas behind it, are addressing the problems that are causing crime. Realistically, not that many people are committing crimes. 90% of it in this district was being done by 23 people when we were working on this DeKalb safety group. And over half of them were dealing with problems of addiction that we were not dealing with as a community. We have resources for that now. We need to dramatically increase those resources so that we can help people come out of the cycle of addiction. Our jail is filled with people who are there for mental health issues because we make mental health into a crime. We need to support people dealing with mental health problems and address those. And we need to provide support and resources so everybody has the ability to house, clothe, and feed themselves and pursue happiness. But you can't do that when you're desperately struggling.
Thank you so much. And to you, Samuel. Any
Sure.
question?
Sure. So it came out of course, the social unrest and the social awakening that took place last summer. And so some good things have come of that. And this is just, I think, the focus on the police is a part of it. When I spoke to Chief Bryant a couple of months ago, he said to me, Well, Sam, more than 85% of the police budget, it's the force, it's people, it's officers. So you defund, so now you're talking about less police, and I don't think we're talking about that right away. But what I think we're talking about though is funding better things like PAD. We don't want our police making as many arrests as they're making. We want to be able to divert people before they're arrested at certain services that we mentioned already. And I think the metric should be, well, how many people did we not arrest for the police? How many did you arrest? But how many did you divert to PAD? So my belief is that the funding that if we fund more PAD, fund more things like that, we'll need less and less the police. Therefore, by just, organically, the budget for the police will go down. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to switch up again. We're going to go into housing. So too many Atlantans, particularly those in communities of color, struggle to find adequate, healthy, and affordable housing for their families. In recent years, 17,000 new housing units have been built. And however, only 3,300 were priced 1,000 or less. What is your solution to provide more affordable housing? And how would you protect legacy residents from being priced out of their homes due to rising property taxes? And that starts off with Katie.
Big issue for one question, but I'm going to do my best. So housing has become completely unaffordable in this city. If you're making $15 an hour, you should be able to afford about $780 a month in rent. And right now, our average rent is over $1,400 an hour. And that's even if you can find it. You can't even find a place to rent in our city. So we have to address affordable housing on first the front of availability, the front of supply. Right now we're building at a deficit, and so we have to address that. We have to increase the amount of units being built. We have to fast track our permitting process. We have to protect our legacy residents by providing them with additional exemptions, including homeowners exemptions, including a low income exemption, including an age exemption, so that they are not priced out of their house and they're able to age gracefully in place. We also need to be providing them with other services. We need to do that at the same time that we're increasing the density in certain neighborhoods. In addition to that, we have to utilize our publicly owned land in order to build affordable housing. And then we have to incentivize our current developers in order to build a portion of the parts that they are building to be affordable.
Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry. Can you did the thing where I cut out again? Will you repeat the question again?
Yes. So the question was, too many Atlantans, particularly those in communities of color, struggle to find adequate, healthy, and affordable housing for their families. In recent years, 17,000 new housing units have been added to the city. However, only 3,300 were priced 1,000 or less. What is your solution to provide more affordable housing? And how would you protect legacy residents from being priced out of their homes due to rising property values, or property taxes, rather? And
I'm going to focus on, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, yep,
focus
it's up to
on the
Mandy.
legacy. I'm going to focus on the legacy piece specifically. We talk about property taxes. That is only half of the story here. So the bills you pay and can you actually live in your house is equally important to the property taxes. We do, yet we don't know how to integrate those into the conversation. The city is giving back millions of dollars every year that should be used to make the homes healthier for these folks. So I have a parent over 70. Just as important in property taxes is, does she have a tub and a toilet that she can use? And we need to use this money to actually upgrade these homes so that they can stay there and they're not pushed out to some other solution. This is all due to the last 100+ years of racist policy that created redlining and that has prevented people from being able to access resources to upgrade their homes. And that is why we are now in this crisis point.
Thank you. That question now goes to Doug.
Hi, if we're going to identify how to do affordable housing, then first thing we need to do is identify what our needs are. And we need to audit the income for residents and workforce in every part of the city. So we know what percentage of the people need to be at 80%, 60%, 45%, or 30% of the AMI so that we can properly build for it. I do believe that the solution proposed by Amir Faroki for the MRMU increased density is a good start, but you have to mandate affordable housing in exchange for density. It can't be something where you just hope that it happens. We have to legislate and demand that that happens along with the increased density, that we get the affordable housing. And that gets us to about 60%, 80% AMI within the market. Now, you're going to have to use our tax subsidies and incentives for people who are sitting below 50% because the market cannot supply that housing. The numbers don't work. That's what we need to be subsidizing to get affordable housing.
Thank you. On to you, Samuel?
Yeah, sure. A good place to start is with identifying the truly the affordable housing need, and at what point, the AMI, where you're going to go, and then develop what we're going to call appropriate design options too. What kind of housing are we talking about, and get those in front of the community to make sure that they buy into, yeah, that's the kind of affordable housing that we need. Now, I also want to address making, you mentioned the legacy residents, making it affordable for them to stay. We're using something like the West Side Futures Fund, which involves philanthropy. I think there are enough philanthropists out there to get this thing done. We got to expand the homestead exemption. We can probably use, by doing that, we can use things like use impact fees. We got trust funds out there. We've got tax increment financing out there. We can issue GO bonds for housing. We've also got development authorities out there that can do this. We can also do, there's lots of levels. We can do demolition conversion fees. There are lots of things we can do, and it's going to take a multi-pronged approach, I think, to address the issue comprehensively. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Liliana.
So first, housing overhauled. We are building on a 20,000 unit deficit. We need a lot more housing to be built. And we actually have the data now through organizations like Neighbors for More Neighbors to find out how many houses per neighborhood that we need to build over the next 20 years to accommodate the growth that we're about to see, because it's basic cost and it's basic economics, supply and demand. You don't have enough housing, they're going to come for the legacy folks first. They're going to come for lower income folks first. They're going to find ways to push them out of their houses to make space for new people coming in. And we have to combat that, which is a very difficult thing to do, but we do have the data to make that happen. So another piece is also partnering with AVLF to provide access to counsel for people facing foreclosures and evictions, which other cities have done. And another thing is, when I speak with young home buyers and middle income homeowners, they often express need for support just getting started. We can increase, like I said, increase our supply, but also multifamily options, which are more affordable by design. We can work through Invest Atlanta. I believe they give payments up to 20K, but it can be adjusted to meet medium down payment levels. We also have our land trusts, which we need to actually push for the city to acquire publicly owned land to build affordable housing. A lot of the parcels held by APS, and we need to be working with the land trust. I would support expanding our tax exemptions to higher levels from 30 to 50K. Most of those exemptions are only for our seniors. There's a long list of things to go through, obviously, and we're out of time, and a minute is too short, but that's some of the places where we can start. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Definitely understand. We're going to switch up again. We're going to talk about jobs in the city of Atlanta. The Atlanta region is a leader in job growth, but too many what we'll quote unquote call good jobs are going unfilled. More than half of the jobs in Atlanta requires at least a bachelor's degree, while only 35% of residents over the age of 25 meet that requirement. What is your solution to help break this cycle of underskilled, low-paying employment that so many deal with? And that starts off with Mandy.
It is very good that the Atlanta Workforce Agency is now housed under Invest Atlanta, because so much of the resources that flow to support job creation and training to help people that are on the lower end of the wage pipeline, but we cannot let that just sit there without oversight. It needs tremendous leadership to ensure that that agency is effectively providing training and working with the right partnerships so that they're using the money and resources effectively. And on council, that's one of the key roles that council offers, is to ensure that there is the type of leadership and oversight that is coming out of Invest Atlanta for that agency.
Okay, thank you. Next, Doug. Douglas.
I'll go, I guess.
Hang on, let me text him real quick. Hold on. And in the meantime, can you repeat the question?
Yes.
I think the question was, okay.
Doug, you're up.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
Sorry about that. I was taking down notes and trying not to listen. My apologies. We absolutely need to, sorry, I take notes while y'all are talking. And with the headset, it's hard to not listen. Sorry. So I'm sure what Mandy had to say was great. Workforce training for people who are not going to college is something that I didn't really hear. And it's actually one of the biggest opportunities we have to help people out. If you get a college degree, there's lots of opportunities, but there are lots of people for whom that is not what they're looking for. But we have a massive needs for union and trade jobs, particularly with all of the housing that we're going to be building. There's someone who's got to do that work. And right now there's a massive shortage across the board for skilled workers, and we are aging out that workforce. The film industry has massive needs for skilled workers within their trade. We are now the leading film industry in the country, but we don't have the workforce to support it. By the way, the IATSE is looking at a strike for not having adequate support. I hope everybody's supporting them in that. And finally, the hospitality industry has massive needs that we are not meeting. So there are, for people who are not going to college, a lot of resources. We need to consider that, especially when we look at people who are trying to get out of the prison pipeline. And as far as getting people to better college paying jobs, that comes back to APS, and we're out of time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Sorry, but I got that.
Doug, did you breathe during that entire answer?
No.
Probably not.
The answer goes to you, Samuel.
Sure.
Of course, it goes to you, Samuel.
Yeah, no, I got it now. And a part of your question, at least, it was this mismatch between the types of jobs requiring bachelor's degrees and then the number of people in the city who have bachelor's degrees. There's this kind of, they're not enough. And so I haven't thought a lot about this, at least mechanically, but perhaps the city could sponsor something like a Hope Scholarship. And we got to find a way to get people, to everyone's point, okay, not where everyone is college, that's true. But if it means helping them, those who would benefit from going to college, get a better job, and finances are the issue, let's find a way through scholarships to get them there. Once again, I think the philanthropic community, it's ready for something like that because it really benefits them. It's not so, it does benefit the city, but ultimately they get the jobs. They get the people who can work on those particular type projects. Now, I'm also in agreement with, we've got apprentice programs with like unions that can certainly be used by those who don't want, who don't want to go to school, that is to college. And their jobs are there from them too. But again, on the first issue, I'm talking about something like a Hope Scholarship that's funded by philanthropists. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Liliana?
Yeah, I know this is really annoying when I talk about my endorsements. So I know how obnoxious it is. But I was endorsed by the Atlanta, Georgia North Labor Council, and that is those are our unions. And I've done a lot of that work with them for a long time, specifically around this issue, because education, formal education is becoming increasingly expensive. It's insane. And the debt that you rack up from it is equally crazy. So when you already live in a city that has one of the biggest wealth gaps in the nation, and it's the hardest to live in on minimum wage, looking towards things like trade schools are increasingly important, especially when we have kids that are falling between the cracks, that are becoming addicted and trafficked in middle school grades, because I've done a lot of that work and it's horrible. So if we actually I've been working on the last year and a half with some of our unions to begin the education at a high school level, hopefully soon at middle school. We only have the curriculum right now for high school, but providing that education to staff our apprenticeship programs, because right now union apprenticeship programs are low and they actually need more kids out of high school levels and starting at younger ages. And this fast tracks kids to really well-paying jobs. And equally, we need to be passing ordinances that require that the city hire union contractors rather than contractors that are just going to post jobs on Indeed and not actually hire people or contractors that are going to look out for their employees, provide them with benefits, healthcare and protections, and fair wages. So that's where I would work on that.
Thank you so much. And to you, Katie?
Hi. Yes. So as someone who actively works with youth in this city and understands how the city has not served our youth for multiple reasons. One being that we are so siloed between the city council and Atlanta Public Schools. One of my best friends and colleagues is actually currently running for school board on Atlanta Public Schools. And I am someone who, as a parent, as someone who has worked with youth, do understand the need for that relationship. And so, you know, we are the home of the AUC, right? We have a lot of resources at our disposal. I've said that from the beginning, that our city is a wealth of resources, and we just need to invest in the resources that we already have and the people who are already doing the work. And, you know, just leave you with one number, $5.6 million. That is how much the mismanagement of WorkSource Atlanta stole from our citizens. And I would love to have that money back. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go, just want to, anyone who's listening, if there are any questions for the community, this is your perfect time to put it in our chat or Q&A, or if you're watching us on Facebook, you can also leave a message on our Facebook, because this is going to be the last question I have for you candidates until we go to the community questions. And this is resolved around youth. Researchers find that most students need to read proficiently by the end of the 3rd grade to be successful in their future studies and careers. In Atlanta, only 40% of 3rd graders are hitting that mark. How do you plan on working with APS to make sure that the next generation of Atlanta residents are prepared to be successful? And that starts off with you, Doug.
So we actually have data to look at and see what works in this city. And I'm blanking on the name, but the speech school partnered with Drew Charter to begin a language curriculum for native English speakers to make sure that they were exposed to adequate number of words to make up the education gap. Because a lot of kids, by the time they start 3rd grade, are at a massive deficit of words that they've been exposed to. And I think that we can look at our community centers and our preschools, and really we need to be looking at fund partnerships with the state and federal government to increase preschool access for every kid in the city of Atlanta that is going into schools. If we make those investments on the front end, we can already see from examples that have worked that it doesn't matter where you come from. If we pour the resources into kids instead of blaming them for their bad choices and parents, we can actually see benefits. But we have to give the kids what they need, not just complain about what they don't have.
Thank you. Question that goes to you, Samuel.
Well, since it's already been done, I'm going to give a plug also for the speech school. My daughter benefited from a transition from Drew to the speech school in that grade, that 3rd grade level, because she was having difficulty, and thank God for the speech school. And it works. That is more intensive instruction, much more environment like that where it's immersion, but again, everyone can benefit from that. But it starts out earlier though. I think we need to go back to the Head Start programs. The city can certainly look into that, as well as it's not just, I don't think Doug mentioned parents. I don't think it's just the children who need this assistance, but the parents too. I think statistics will tell you parents who read to their children, those children then turn to be great readers, avid readers. So we got to make sure that parents themselves are interested or engaged. So these programs that we might start with APS should not just involve the students, the children, but their parents as well, because I think that's sustainability and that's longevity. Thank you very much. And I think that'll work much more comprehensively than just trying to focus on the children themselves. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Liliana, question to you.
Yeah, so we know that when kids don't graduate high school, they're 7 times more likely to end up in prison. And we also know that based on what you just named, that a lot of times that pushes teachers to make, because they're so underfunded, and because we have done things like defund education, that forces them to make the hard choice of not working with those kids and instead working with more promising children that they can help, which is not a reason to not work with children who need the most help. In fact, we should be doing the exact opposite. But one of the things that council can absolutely do, and I do have a long history of working with APS, thankfully, director of partnerships, the superintendent, some of the principals, but we need to be working in council to make sure that we tackle foundational issues so that these kids, like so a child isn't in a food desert, so they have access to a quality life, and they're able to keep a roof over their heads instead of having to stay with a single parent. Or, you know, how many kids I work with that are living in motels right now or in horrible living conditions. Ensure that they have the quality of life that they need to have an equal opportunity access to education. I worked over the last 2 years to get BAR into some of our hardest hit schools, which stands for Building Assets, Reducing Risks, and they specialize in closing the opportunity gap between Black and white students and raising employment rates. And we got public funding, we got them in there, and I had to work with APS to make that happen.
Okay, thank
And
you
that's
so
what
much
I'm-
for that answer. Katie?
Yeah, I think it's good that we're working, we have different people who are working with APS and working with schools, but I also think you need to actually be working with children. And the children that I have worked with have shown me firsthand that kids can't learn if they're hungry. Kids can't learn if they don't have a safe place to live. Kids can't learn if they're worried about where they're going to sleep that night. And so that is where it's so important for City Council to be as invested in our youth as our Atlanta Public School Board is. And so that is why I am running, ultimately, because I know that our teachers can't do their jobs so long as they are not having kids getting their basic needs met. And you know, that is what I want to do as our next City Councilwoman on District 5.
Thank you so much. And Mandy?
I just love Katie's answer. She's spot on with that. And I also love how Sam lifted up early childhood pre-K programs. I serve on the board of a nonprofit devoted to early childhood in the Mississippi Delta, the highest rate of poverty in the nation. And it is just staggering if we're not able to do the interventions early with kids that are pre-K age. And we have a tremendous lack of effective pre-K resources in Atlanta. And we've got to look at how we can make resources available to more innovatively stand up more quality early childhood programs in our city, because that is what will then change the path. So this child, by the time they're in 3rd grade, they are thriving in reading.
Thank you so much. So that's the end of our scripted questions that we have. I'm going to turn it over to Sam. Sam, if you can turn on your camera and unmute. Oops, let me get you, and then let me spotlight you. Sam, do we have any questions from our community?
So we do. I think the first question is, would you support an ordinance that would mandate every City of Atlanta contract to allocate a percentage of jobs for that project to local residents?
Okay, and that will go with, since we ended it with Mandy, that will go to Doug first.
By instinct, yes. I think we've got to figure out a way to make that work. In the back of my mind, I can hear various business owners saying, well, what if we don't have people who can do the jobs? And particularly in the film industry right now, where there really is a massive desire to do business here. But frankly, we got to figure out how to make that work. And if we don't have the people necessary to do it, then we need to fund the resources so that we can grow that workforce and get it done locally. And I think part of the way that we can address that is by working on the supply and the demand side of the equation, by creating the demand through our contract process.
Okay. Sam, the question goes to you.
Sure. Start small and then you kind of grow it out from there. I don't know which industry, Doug mentioned one that maybe it wouldn't work with because of some particulars there. So identifying the right industries first and where it works, where the workforce is already there locally and ready to go. I start there and then aspirationally work with, work source, whatever, but find some way to get that pipeline then in order for the other areas where we also have city contracts. So again, I would just say, I love it, the idea of it, but I wouldn't want to create some entanglements that we can't get ourselves out of, and projects get bogged down and infrastructure didn't get done because they can't meet that, whatever that 30%, whatever that quota is. But I would certainly want to start with that, something small that is, and then grow it out from there.
Okay,
you.
thank you, Sam. Liliana?
Yeah, and I mean, what Doug said instinctually, yes. I think one of the things here is that we are hurting so hard on the front of job employment and trades programs, and we have high unemployment rates. We have a lot of people that aren't able to go to work or that aren't going to work right now. We've displaced a lot of our working class community for a lot of these jobs. So I think this also speaks to the bigger issue of like, maybe we rewrite this ordinance to first create more workforce housing, so that we like maybe a percentage goes to workforce housing first and foremost, so we actually can get people who want to work these jobs locally again, so we aren't burdening them with the cost of transit, because the cost of transit is very expensive, especially if you're a renter. And instead allocate that funding first, like have a period of time where it's allocated to a certain number of workforce housing, and then make it so that we shift it towards hiring locally, and then take it a step further. And like I said earlier, push for there to be a percentage of our contracts to be union contractors instead of people that just hire non-union workers in 1099 and miscategorize people so that they can cut them at the knees with their payment and rob the city of taxable dollars. So like I said, yes, love the concept. I think it speaks to bigger issues that we have to work on too.
Thank you so much, Liliana. Katie?
And I think the concept is good. I do think that we would definitely need a ramp up period, and we would need to get a huge amount of community feedback. I mean, feedback from the community as well as the business owners, both small and large, to understand and really flesh out this idea. I think Atlanta has done a really great job of incentivizing growth of business. We've given tax breaks to large corporations to come into our city, but then we haven't supported the people that are here. And so a lot of these organizations and a lot of these corporations are importing in people to do the job. And that's not what we are here for. We need to make sure that we are putting our citizens first. And yes, I want our citizens to have good jobs. And I think corporations are really a good part of that. But I think that we also need to make sure that we are remember who elected us, and it wasn't corporations. They may have been giving us checks for some people, but for the people who elected us are the citizens, and we have to put their needs first.
Thank you so much. And Mandy?
So the city has a long history of procurement requirements around buying locally, hiring people, women, people of color. And we currently have a position in the city that is to oversee local hiring. However, that position has not been filled. And so I think before passing any new law, we need to actually look at what we're doing now and improve it so that it can meet the goals and intentions that are consistent with any local hire ordinance that the person asking the question asked about.
Okay, thank you so much. Sam, are there any other questions from our community?
Yeah, we have one more. What are your plans to help and revitalize businesses, including small businesses?
Okay.
Sam, could you say it one more time?
Yeah. What are your plans to help and revitalize businesses, including small businesses in the city?
Okay, and that will go to Samuel to start off with.
I think that the pandemic itself has kind of opened some doors to technology, and that I believe is a bridged opportunity. It's a bridge for small businesses to do business better with the city. So I'm going to make sure that stays in place. I mean, applying for licenses and permits and all that. Let's just continue to do that. We've shown now ourselves we can do it online. So that's going to be one thing. Continue to do that. I don't want to go back to the old way. I think that's important to do. Plus, I mean, the financial burdens on small businesses now is pretty tremendous. If we can find ways to reduce that burden, or maybe delay payment of taxes, but finding ways to at least decrease the financial burden that small businesses now are facing will be another thing that I'd want to do, as well as moving forward, making sure that any new development that comes in, that developers encouraged to provide for space for local and small businesses. So just kind of setting aside some setting aside some space for us, for small businesses so they can thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Liliana?
Yeah, so small businesses are the backbone and cultural glue of our local communities. They are everything. First, fund business associations at the neighborhood level. They know what they're doing. Their whole thing is to uplift small businesses. Their whole thing is to support small businesses. They are the experts. Defer to them, fund them, so that it's not a volunteer basis and they're not burning themselves out. Invest in programs like SmartMe. Expand those programs so that people can have a greater investment to wealth building opportunities and socioeconomic, climbing the socioeconomic ladder and having more socioeconomic mobility. Make it a one-stop shop so that small businesses don't have to lose so much money trying to start a small business here in the city of Atlanta. Everything operates in silos. Have it under one roof. Make it to the permitting process in one location to make it easier. Also, do liquor taxes for those who are facing a liquor tax situation, which are some of the most expensive ones in the country. Have it based on occupancy, and have property taxes broken up so they're not paid all up front. We're one of the only cities that does that. That can be on a house level, on a house property tax level, but also for small businesses. And make sure that we're all the things that we brought about during the pandemic, parklets, everything else, minimizing parking ordinances, all of those things, keep it going because it is working for our food service industries. Defer to the small businesses and what they need.
Okay, thank you so much. Katie?
That's a Title 10, right, Liliana?
13, was it 10? Okay.
It's a Title 10. Sorry, inside joke. Inside
10th Amendment.
The inside candidate joke from another forum, guys. Sorry about that. But I do agree with my fellow candidate in that we do need to fund our business owners association and provide them with the administrative needs that they have. As a president of Kirkwood Neighbors Organization, I have worked directly with our president of our Business Owners Association. We meet on a regular basis because it is those two things together. I think that the citizens, many of our small business owners are also our citizens, are also our voters. And so we have to work with them because it's an important part of our community, and the money that goes to small businesses just creates more economic impact in our community than having these big box chains that we deal with. So we have to support them. We have to support the processes. Currently, it is completely unequitable. It takes people anywhere from a year to 18 months to even get their business open because it is so difficult to work with the city, and that is completely unequitable. The industry that has grown the most during all of this is the expediter industry, and I would like to make the expediter industry unneeded. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Mandy, that question goes to you.
3 things. 1, yes, fund a position that supports the business associations throughout the district. 2, get the city's house in order so that it is not horribly hard to be able to do the basic things like getting a business license or paying your taxes to the city. But then 3, Invest Atlanta. We need to make more resources available through Invest Atlanta to support small businesses in partnership with also supporting the large industries in town. But we have for too long not looked at using resources from Invest Atlanta to support small businesses.
Thank you so much. And last, Doug.
So I've been a small businessman and supporting and consulting small businesses for years, so I've got a lot to say. Quickly, we need to mandate limits on the use of franchises and new developments and create opportunities for more of our locally owned small businesses. We need to increase staffing in all agencies that serve small businesses, but also we need to have agents who can be a concierge process to walk businesses through the process of getting licensed and getting their business open and paying taxes rather than setting up roadblocks and barriers for them to get open. We need to partner with our business associations. I do support staffing them, but again, have the caveat that you want to make sure that those business associations don't protect themselves and pull up the ladder behind them, because after all, these are humans and not all of us are great. We need to treat businesses differently based on their size. So small businesses are not treated the same as large businesses, whether that be liquor license or landlords. And we need to fund incubators for businesses, not just at the level of funding for capital investments, but simple things like commercial kitchens and crafting space so that you can start out with a farmer's market and build a market before you open your store.
Thank you so much. Somebody's going on.
Was that a new timer that was introduced suddenly? There's a
No.
whole new element to this game.
No, like, yeah, we're starting a new game now. We're gonna start a new game in a new way. No, just joking. That is, I believe that's all our community questions. So we're almost done. We're just basically candidates, everyone will get a minute to do their closing statements to really stress why should the residents of District 5 vote for you come November 2nd. And we're gonna go in reverse order because we opened it up in the top of the roster. So we're gonna start with Doug. You get a minute, Doug.
So I got into community organizing to fight what I call the Southern boondoggle, which is the idea that we can't make change, and the way the system is the way it's always going to be. So when people talk about who you're running against, I always say I'm running for an open seat with 4 other candidates, but I'm running against cynicism, and my opponent is more experienced and has better arguments than I do, because people who live in Atlanta and DeKalb have all the reason in the world not to believe in our government. We have too many examples of failure. My goal is to get people to believe that we can make positive change by working together, and I've devoted the majority of the past 20 years of my life to help affect positive change in our community. I'm asking for people to vote for me because I get things done and I have a track record that I'm running on. I'm not asking you to believe in what I might do for you. I'm asking you to look at what I've done and understand that I am committed to making this city work for everyone. And if you vote for me November 2nd, you can better believe that I will bust my ass to make this city work for you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mandy, your closing statement.
Since I was a young child, I have been called to drive system change, which is why I've spent my career in public policy. And I'm going into this eyes wide open because I was an appointed official in the Franklin and Reed administrations. I know what it takes to get things done down at City Hall. And it is hard work. It is long work. You have to have the most interesting of partnerships to be able to find that common overlap in the Venn diagram to create lasting change. And I love that. I love finding ways to work with people who you don't necessarily think you have things in common, and then you can find really powerful partnership to create win-win solutions. And that's what I want to do more of in this role.
Thank you so much, Mandy. Katie?
When our current council member, Natalie Archibong, decided to run for city council president, that day my phone blew up. I had people calling me from all over asking me, Katie, what are you going to do? And I did that, and I wasn't expecting to make that choice at that moment. But sometimes you have to answer the call to service. And I believe that we need an honest, authentic, real person who lives and breathes the community currently in this seat. And that is why I'm running, and that is why I'm going to continue to serve this community well after November 2nd, well after November 30th. And I am going to continue to work and advocate for all of District 5 and everybody in the city of Atlanta. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Katie. Liliana?
Yeah, first of all, thank y'all so much. As you see, you've heard from 5 extraordinary people whom I'm lucky to share that platform, to share this opportunity with. I got called into community service by my family. I had a father and a family that barely survived 2 revolutions in Iran. And so like I grew up in public service. I grew up marching in the streets with my dad, hearing really horrific stories and a lack of mutual aid. And I grew up working at his pharmacy in downtown Atlanta, where quite honestly, the conditions haven't gotten any better than they were in the 90s. So you still have people on the streets freezing to death in the winter that are homeless, who are starving, who don't have access to shelter because we don't have a housing first program. I'm running because I've experienced all the hardships that we're talking about. And the fact of the matter is that legislation is shaped by subjective experiences. And when you've experienced knowing what it's like to live with someone who might be an addict and you can't afford utilities, or live out of your car, or getting disowned by your family more times than you can name because your views in your way of life doesn't align with their religious viewpoints, those things are very difficult. And those are a lot of those issues are the exact same things that a lot of our community faces. And we have to be shaping legislation from the ground up, our most disadvantaged people first. I'm running because I know what that's like, and I don't ever want anybody to feel alone in that struggle the way that I did. So thank y'all.
Thank you so much, Liliana. And to finish it out, Samuel.
Thank you again, League of Women Voters, and also thank you, my fellow candidates. I want us to up our commitment level together. I've never before held public office. Looking forward to becoming a servant leader truly for all in District 5. I say that and I do this too. I listen first before I'm listened to. I understand you before you understand me. In other words, people come first for me. The neighborhoods come first. That's my North Star. I'm looking forward to working for all of you come, election November 2nd, and then come January of next year at the installation. So I want everyone to, who doesn't know already, to learn more about me. And I'm looking forward, like I said, looking forward to getting everyone's vote and working for everyone in District 5. Thank you so much. And again, thank you, League, and thank you others too who've been watching.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Carpenter, who's going to do our closing remarks.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending our City of Atlanta Council District 5 Candidate Forum. I'm Kathy Carpenter, and I'm the VP of Membership for the League of Women Voters, Atlanta, Fulton County. Thank you, Nicola Hines, our President of the League of Women Voters, Atlanta, Fulton County, for being our moderator tonight. And thank you to our candidates, Samuel Bacote, Liliana Bakhtiari, Katie Kissel, Mandy Mahoney, and Doug Williams for taking the time to educate and engage the residents of Atlanta and Fulton County. Special thanks goes to our Voter Services Committee for all your hard work and dedication to the League. Of course, voting is vitally important for national and state elections, but participating in local elections is also important because it starts the change that is needed within your community. Your council members, mayors, sheriffs, DAs, and judges should have a strong connection to your community and be a true voice of your community. And the only way to make that happen is if you go to the polls as an educated voter. Once again, thank you for attending. And if you would like more information about joining the League of Women Voters, Atlanta, Fulton County, you can go to our website, lwvaf.org/join. The League is one of the most respected civic activist organizations in the country. And we, the Atlanta Fulton County chapter, are very proud to be the original and the oldest chapter. We welcome members from all sides of the aisle, race, gender, religion, or sex. We are political, but nonpartisan, and never endorse any political candidates or parties. We mobilize citizen action for a better and more democratic America. Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, thank you. Best of luck, candidates. We'll find out November 2nd. You guys are part of our slate that looks like it might be a runoff, so we might see you again. So appreciate you, everyone. Have a good afternoon and the rest of your great weekend. Thank you.